Coming up on Market Shares, the House finally has a speaker. We'll take a look at how they're addressing pressing issues now that they finally have someone in charge.
Plus, a historic agreement. We will take a look at the deal struck by UAW workers.
And the closing bell just rung on Wall Street. We'll have a full update on how the markets look this week. Hold on to your wallets because Market Share starts right now. Good afternoon and welcome into Market Shares. I'm Peter Elliott.
And I'm Chilekasi, Adele, in for Bradley Hoppenstein. We begin with the latest on the United Auto Workers strike. On Wednesday, the United Automobile Workers and Ford Motor announced both parties reached a tentative agreement on the new labor deal. The agreement came over 5 weeks after auto workers staged walkouts against Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Market Shares' Dominic Chacon here in studio now to break down the details behind the new deal. Dominic, what should we know?
Chilekasi and Peter, in a year marked by strikes across several major industries, the UAW is the latest labor group to land a new contract, and in this case, a new deal with one of the 3 largest car manufacturers in the country. The current agreement will last 4 years and includes a 25% annual pay increase, improved pensions, and better job security. It also guarantees the right for auto workers to strike due to plant closures. In a live stream on Facebook, UAW President Shawn Fain said, quote, "We made history, we know it breaks records, we know it will change lives," unquote. Now for some context on Fain's statement, the UAW landed a larger pay increase in the tentative deal compared to what Ford was initially offering. And President Biden also commenting on the new agreement between the UAW and Ford. On Wednesday, Biden wrote, quote, "This tentative agreement provides a record raise to auto workers who have sacrificed so much to ensure our iconic Big Three companies can still lead the world in quality and innovation." Now, Biden has strongly been a supporter of union workers and their right to strike throughout his term. Here he is back in September when the auto workers first striked in Detroit.
And I understand the workers' frustration. Over generations, auto workers sacrificed so much to keep the industry alive and strong, especially through the economic crisis and the pandemic. Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they helped create for an enterprise.
Now, while the Ford deal is done for now, the UAW will continue negotiations with General Motors, GM, and Stellantis, which includes notable brands like Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram. And additionally, the union's 57,000 members must still approve the current deal on the table with Ford. But Chilekasi and Peter, this is a rapidly developing story, and it looks like there will be even more to break down as more of these deals get done.
Definitely, Dom. You briefly brought up President Biden's positive stance on the auto worker strikes and this new deal. It's something he hasn't been shy about. What were the political stakes here for Biden, and what does it mean for him politically?
You look at where the majority of these strikes are taking place, and of course Detroit was the heart of it all, but these are the states that are going to make the biggest difference in the 2024 election. And we have seen states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, that blue rust belt that for the longest time voted Democrats, swung in favor of Donald Trump in 2016, back to President Biden in 2020. These are kind of going to be the purple states, if you will, heading into that presidential election. If you're President Biden, this was a major victory, not just, of course, for the auto workers themselves, but I think just politically makes them a lot less vulnerable compared to just 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Now, Dom, zooming out here just from the auto industry, we've seen strikes over several across industries over the course of the last year. Do you expect that trend to continue of the strong labor movement here in the country?
There's a lot of factors at play. I think obviously the continuation of inflation in this country has been a problem. I think the rise in the stagnation in wages, particularly as corporations continue to see their profits increase. But when you have an administration like President Biden's that's doubled down on being pro-labor and specifically pro-labor union and the right to strike, we've seen with industries like the actors, the writers, and now with the auto workers, among others, that this is just a continuation of a bigger trend that's going on where workers are tired of corporations making millions to billions of dollars while their wages have been roughly the same in 2023 as they were in 1973. So I expect this to continue, Peter.
All right, Dominic Chacon, thank you so much. Now to the latest in the Israel-Hamas conflict. CNN is reporting, quote, significant progress in talks between Hamas and Qatar to release hostages. 2 more have been released in the past week, but Israel says more than 200 people are still being held by Hamas.
Now, Hamas officials are calling for a ceasefire in order to release the hostages, and U.S. officials here at home are attempting to cool the flames in the Middle East while facing domestic pressures to do more. President Biden condemned attacks against West Bank settlers at a Rose Garden press conference with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Wednesday.
One more word on this. I continue to be alarmed about extremist settlers attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. that pouring gasoline on fire is what it's like. This was a deal. The deal was made, and they're attacking Palestinians in places that they're entitled to be. And it has to stop. They have to be held accountable, and it has to stop now.
Well, shifting back here to the States, after 22 days, finally a resolution on Capitol Hill. Congress is getting back to business after a new speaker was voted in this week. Market shares analyst Benjamin Schiller joins us now with the latest from Washington. Ben?
Hey, Peter and Chile. It's been 3 market shares Fridays without a speaker, but now we finally have one. Republican Mike Johnson of Louisiana safely won the vote in a bid on Wednesday, and he won that vote with no Republican opposers, something that has been a problem within the GOP caucus. Now, with every Republican except for one being absent in support of Johnson, many Americans do not know who the 56th Speaker of Congress really is. So let's actually talk about who this Mike Johnson really is. Well, he is a congressman. He's from Louisiana. He's from the 4th district in Louisiana. That is a majority conservative district. It is a dark red district. According to the American Conservative Union, he has a 92% conservative voting all-time record in Congress. He's been in office since January of 2017, and he's also currently on the House Judiciary Committee. Keep in mind, he's also had some top GOP roles. He actually led the Republican Study Committee up until now. He is now the Speaker of the House. So now that you have a sense about who Mike Johnson really is, let's talk about his stances and his voting record since he was elected just 7 years ago. Let's talk about it. Well, he votes majority Republican, especially he sides with the far-right Republicans. He did not vote to certify the 2020 presidential election. Some are calling him the architect of that debacle in 2021. He is also a close ally of former President Trump, as well as the far Republicans. Actually, Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida called Mike Johnson MAGA Mike Johnson. And let's talk about some of his stances. Well, he supports a national abortion federally and also opposes LGBTQ plus rights on Congress. He's actually, let's talk about Ukraine aid now. He's actually voted against Ukraine aid recently. In 2022, he was in favor of the Ukraine aid, but in some recent votes on Capitol Hill, he's been voting against Ukraine. This is the last vote taking place just last month, but now he's open talking about it on the floor. Actually, I want to play you a clip. This is from yesterday when Mike Johnson was talking with Sean Hannity of Fox News. Take a listen to what he had to say when he met with President Biden about Ukraine aid and the future of Israel aid as well.
We're not going to abandon them, but we have a responsibility, a stewardship responsibility over the precious treasure of the American people. And we have to make sure that the White House is providing the people with some accountability for the dollars.
Now that you have a sense on what to expect from Mike Johnson, it's safe to say he'll indeed have a busy first month in his new role, guys.
Yeah, Ben, you mentioned that busy week. What exactly is going to fill his schedule, obviously, now that he's moved into this new role?
Well, we've talked about former Speaker McCarthy having a tough 9 months. Well, this is going to be a tough 1 month period for Speaker Mike Johnson. Well, first of all, he has a new war on the international front with Israel and Hamas. He has to make sure he is presenting Israel and Ukraine. He has to take up the account from the White House. The White House has been pushing this aid package. We heard President Biden last week promote this $106 billion aid package that would go towards Ukraine and Israel. Also, the government might shut down again. Just 3 Fridays from now, the government on November 17th is expected to shut down again unless Congress is able to put together a funding package together. So it's safe to say Mike Johnson will have a busy month on the calendar. And keep in mind, the Republicans, they've had a lot of discourse within their caucus. He has to make sure in his own caucus that they're all on the same page, because this is going to be a tough 3 weeks up ahead for Congress.
And Ben, how do you kind of stay on the same page there? You know, we talk about the aid package, $106 billion that Biden's proposing in aid to Israel and Ukraine. How, when you have such a fragmented party and a fragmented caucus with a lot of people in opposition to that kind of aid package, how do you rally up support for something like that, or do you even at all?
That's going to be the first major challenge for Speaker Johnson. Let's talk about a couple of things. We went 22 days without a Speaker of Congress. We went from Kevin McCarthy to Steve Scalise being nominated, to Jim Jordan being nominated, to Tom Emmer being nominated. All three of those candidates dropped out of the race when Mike Johnson was his turn to be for the vote for Speaker of the House. Not one Republican opposed. It seems right now Republicans are starting to be on the same page again, but once again, it's up to Mike Johnson. He is now the leader of the Republican caucus. It's up to him to make sure that his party is on the same page with any sort of legislation that comes across the table in the next month.
Should be an interesting one indeed. Ben, thank you so much. Now, across the tech sector, Google, Tesla, and Meta's disappointing earnings wiped out nearly $200 billion in market value earlier in the week. Google's parent company Alphabet actually beat earnings expectations, but a poor third quarter showing by the company's cloud business sent its stock down this week. Revenue was about $1 billion more than expected, coming in at $64 billion, also higher than the $57 billion the company brought in during the same quarter last year. But Google's cloud business fell short of Wall Street's estimates, topping out at $8.4 billion in quarter three versus estimates in the range of $8.6 billion. Shares of the company fell more than 6% after the report, but it's been clawing its way back up as we finish the week. Peter.
Well, Chile, on that note, Microsoft's investment in its AI and cloud businesses is paying off. It announced its third quarter results earlier this year, posting nearly $57 billion in sales from July to September. That's up 13% from a year ago. The company's profit also jumped up from this time last year, up 27% to $22 billion. Microsoft previously said it wouldn't see big results from its AI investments until 2024, but its cloud computing product, Azure, grew nearly 30% from last year, with a chunk of that coming from its generative AI products. Remember, Microsoft is a partner with ChatGPT maker OpenAI and invested $13 billion in the company when it launched the viral chatbot ChatGPT over a year ago.
A little bit of music for Spotify's ears. The company turning heads, the streaming giant posting its first quarterly profit in a year. It's nearly $69 million in the third quarter, and it shows that its cost-cutting measures are working. The company has raised its subscription prices and expanding what you get with the service while cutting its workforce and spending on marketing. Its ad-supported revenue also got a boost, up about 16% from the last year. The company continues to beef up what you get with its premium service, announcing earlier this month that U.S. subscribers will soon have access to more than 150,000 audiobooks.
Well, it seems like every company from A to Z is investing in AI, and of course Amazon is as well, and they're seeing results from its push into AI. The tech giant is one of many in the sector catching eyes this week, with shares surging more than 7% early this morning. The company beating its third quarter estimates in an earnings announcement after the bell yesterday. AWS sales are up 12% year over year, and the division's income also jumped 29% from last year to $7 billion. Net sales overall for Amazon were $143 billion, with $160 billion expected for the fourth quarter. But investors are always focused on AWS and its business leveraging AI moving forward. Back in September, Amazon invested over $1 billion in OpenAI's direct competitor, Anthropic. Investors are optimistic that that investment could be worth up to $4 billion over time. And the Federal Reserve is expected to announce that it will leave rates unchanged, but that doesn't mean consumers will feel any relief anytime soon. The Fed has raised interest rates 11 times since last year, the fastest pace of tightening since the early 1980s. However, economists and central bankers seem to be in agreement on one thing, that interest rates are going to stay higher for longer.
Chevron is buying Hess Corporation for $53 billion. Chevron said Monday that the acquisition of Hess adds a major oil field in Guyana and shale fields, which are fields of rock rich with petroleum and natural gas in North Dakota. The deal isn't even the biggest energy sector acquisition this month. Less than 2 weeks ago, ExxonMobil said it was acquiring Pioneer Natural Resources for about $60 billion. Crude oil prices are up 9% this year and have been hovering around $90 per barrel for 2 months.
Qualcomm announcing Tuesday that 2 new chips are designed to run AI software. It says its latest Snapdragon chips can perform AI tasks quicker than the processor they released last year. A Qualcomm executive said compared to last year's chips, they dropped the time to generate an AI image from 15 seconds to less than 1 second. And they don't have to connect to the internet to perform these tasks either. Qualcomm's new PC chip, X Elite, will compete with Intel's x86 chips in laptops and desktops. The x86 chips will hit the market by the middle of next year.
Let's bring it back home, shall we? U.S. Senator from New York Chuck Schumer said Monday that upstate New York has a good shot of being one of the many regions in the country to win up to $75 million in federal grants. The money awarded to the region would go towards semiconductor manufacturing advancement. The upstate New York region, which includes Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo, won a competition to become one of 31 national tech hubs. 5 to 10 of these regions would be in line to get the $75 million Schumer believes the region will receive. Schumer said this tech designation plus the arrival of Micron could help transform the Syracuse to Buffalo region to be the lead innovator in the computer chip industry.
Let's talk personal finance. Taylor's version. Taylor Swift is now officially a billionaire. The pop star has been dominating across multiple fields this year, from the football field to her concert tour, the album re-releases, and blockbuster concert film that released this month. Earlier this summer, her Eras tour was already expected to become the highest-grossing tour of all time, with sales reaching $1 billion. The bump into that billionaire territory was achieved by her concert film that racked in the millions during its opening weekend, and it looks like her wealth is only going up. Swift is re-releasing her 1989 album last night. Swift was already released it last night, rather, and sales are soaring for that album.
Coming up next, markets closing about 15 minutes ago. We'll have the week's top movers. You're watching Market Shares.
Welcome back to Review Crew.
On today's episode, we're going to review Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Here's a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Let's talk about this movie now.
Let's talk about it. I liked it a lot.
I love Kick-Ass.
There are parts of me that want to just go through frame by frame and see every single multiverse when they'd have those flashes.
Yeah, the big flashes. Me too.
Talented, funny, handsome. Tim,
come on.
You got it all, buddy. You're like my own person.
Look who's talking. Come on.
See you next week.
Welcome back to Market Shares. The index is closing about 15 minutes ago on Wall Street. So, Chile, let's take a look at the three major indexes and how they fared this week. Another bloody week on Wall Street, Chile.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's going to be interesting. We'll be talking about this right after this, as a matter of fact. Some of the Q3 earnings, some of the reports from a lot of these different companies. And I think that's why you see a lot of the markets reacting the way they are. That's really what
across all sectors, from oil and gas to technology, a lot of stocks down this week. And that kind of is what our movers look like this week. Just an unfortunate week in the NASDAQ, actually, in particular, having its worst trading day since February, Chile. Yeah. One company in particular has been struggling. It's Hasbro. For the company that makes Play-Doh. A tough time right now for toy manufacturers, game manufacturers as well. Obviously, you've got the holiday season coming up, but Hasbro is not looking, they're not optimistic about this upcoming holiday season. Its CEO saying, quote, "We have a cautious outlook on the holiday." So its stock sliding based on that announcement, and as well as its earnings closing down about 12% on Thursday, Chile.
Yeah, and this is a company which revenue fell 10% year over year for the quarter. Consumer entertainment sales fell 18%. The entertainment segments, hey, writers and actors strikes having a lot of impact on this as well, down 42%. So you just see the bloodbath there.
And we're seeing consumer confidence really take a hit because of all the inflation. Wallets are really getting tightened with all that's going on in the market, all the turbulence. All right, let's move on here to another company that was down this week, whirling away, Whirlpool, Chile.
Yeah, definitely. This morning, Whirlpool was down 22% for the week. It's the second lowest point the company's had this decade. Third quarter results released on Wednesday. The net sales are up 3% year over year. The earnings per share only down 1%. But again, consumer confidence, weak consumer demand, promotional selling environment, that is what the CEOs, everybody's talking about hurting profit margins. The stock declined 11% this year as of Wednesday, but the company does have some optimism. I mean, the numbers, while bad, are not horrendous, and the company believes that the margins are poised to rebound next year. Again, talking about things like mortgage rates, low consumer confidence behind some of these purchases. You're not in the mood to buy a appliance like a microwave or a washer or dryer every single year.
No, you really are not. That's something you make an investment in and you stick with. Well, also on that mood, point of optimism there, they're also spinning off their European division as well, so they're hoping they can bring back some margins as well there. So some optimism there for Whirlpool. Also, they had had a strong first quarter, so it has not been dour the whole year for Whirlpool on Wall Street. All right, finally, let's move on to our teeth here. You might not know the company Align Technology, but you do know what it makes. Invisalign, the braces manufacturer, the invisible braces manufacturer rather, its stock might need to get checked for cavities though, Chile, after a rough third quarter that really disappointed investors.
Yeah, and you're seeing companies set to accelerate the repurchase of $250 million of stock. Joe Hogan, the chief executive, says he'll personally will buy about $1 million of that company's stock. And I think part of the reason, there's a lot of volatility right now in the market. There's consumers cutting back on dental visits. The economy's not that good right now in a lot of cases. And also, you talk about insurance as well. That's something that can affect a lot of dental care prices as well. So something everybody's always talking about.
It really has been. And we've seen consumers reticent to get their teeth checked, really. I mean, we're seeing across, for dentists and orthodontists, decreased patient visits, increased patient appointment cancellation, and just fewer orthodontist cases as well. So really, it's a tough time for that business as kind of this post-pandemic landscape. It seems like some Americans aren't really prioritizing their health because it's so expensive, through no fault of their own. If there's any source of optimism, though, for Align Technology, their teen case volume was up, so that's obviously good. And then also, in addition to those physical braces they make, they also have a subscription program for orthodontists. I didn't know about this until we looked into this, but that's obviously always a good business to be in, that subscription business. We see so many companies getting into, from Peloton to Netflix.
Streaming services, exactly.
Exactly. That is something that you can always generate revenue through. So obviously a tough week for all the indexes and a tough week for our three major markets down on the week. But when we come back, we're not going to be down because Luke Radel is joining us to talk more about Meta. It's facing serious legal heat. Stay with us here on Market Shares.
Precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
I find that this is one of the most apolitical conversations I have in Connecticut. I see very little, if any, disagreement between my constituents on the right and on the left when it comes to the agony that parents are going through today as they try to figure out what their kids are seeing and what their kids are being addicted to online.
Well, that's rare. In politics today, it's not often that the bright red state of South Dakota can find common ground with the deep blue state of California. But a lawsuit filed this week brought them and dozens of other states together. Luke Radel has the story. Hey, Luke.
Hey, Peter. Over the past decade, one company has, quote, profoundly altered the psychological and social realities of a generation. That is the allegation made against Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, in a lawsuit against them by nearly 36 states across the U.S. The states allege that, quote, to maximize profit, Meta's business model focuses on increasing young users' engagement. They also say the company falsely represents that its product features are safe and not designed to induce compulsive and extended use for young users. Those product features, such as push notifications and the infinite scroll on Instagram, are alleged to be, quote, harmful and psychologically manipulative to young people. But why target these young users? Well, the lawsuit outlines three main reasons. One, young users, they say, are more likely to be influenced by advertisements. Two, they're more likely to become lifelong users. And three, the young people out there today set the trends that the rest of society emulates. And this fight isn't just playing out in the court of law. The folks who make the laws on Capitol Hill are also worried about the influence of social media on our kids. A bipartisan group of senators introduced a bill that would force social media giants to improve their age verification measures and prevent the use of algorithms to recommend content to users under the age of 18. Here's what one of the bill's Republican co-sponsors had to say about it back in April.
We don't let minors sign contracts. We don't let them open bank accounts. We don't let them enlist in the military. We don't let them drink alcohol or smoke tobacco without parental consent. If those standards exist in the real world, as they have for the ages, why would we allow them to do those things or something like those things in the digital world?
So, Luke, obviously there's a lot of efforts to crack down and moderate how social media companies are working with young people. How has Meta responded to this most recent lawsuit?
Yeah, obviously the company would want to push back on claims by folks like Tom Cotton comparing their product to cigarettes and to alcohol. In a statement, they pushed back pretty hard on this most recent lawsuit, saying, quote, "We're disappointed that instead of working productively with companies across the industry to create clear, age-appropriate standards for the many apps that teens use, the state attorney generals of these 33 states have chosen this path." The path, of course, is to sue them for pretty large damages amounts. And guys, it's unclear whether politicians will be able to come together like those bipartisan group of senators and actually pass those kinds of clear regulations. So the court of law may be the only place for folks to go.
Luke, Meta and its products, popular in the United States, popular in a lot of places throughout the world, and had a pretty strong earnings report this quarter, but its standing on the markets this week has still struggled. Could this lawsuit have anything to do with that?
Yeah, Chile, absolutely. When we're looking at the markets, it's never good to have 33 states across the U.S. come out and sue you, claiming that you're psychologically manipulating young people. It's not good to have bipartisan groups of lawmakers talking about the threat that your product poses to our young people. So absolutely, that could have played an impact. You mentioned those really strong earning reports from Meta. They are concerned more broadly, though, about the state of the advertising landscape. And one of the key factors in that is whether or not there will be future restrictions by lawmakers on how and where you can advertise to young people. Guys?
Big place to talk about in the realm of social media. When we come back, one last big deal to cover. Hold with us. It's brewing.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Yeah, I saw you guys out there.
Wrapping up shop here on market shares. Beer and fighting. Those are two things, Chile, that have long gone together, and now that relationship is cemented again on paper. Bud Light has struck a multi-marketing deal to become the quote-unquote official beer partner of the UFC. Chile, this is an interesting move for the company. They're going from Modelo, which has supplanted Bud Light as the #1 selling beer in America, to become the official beer of fighting in America, I guess.
And it's been a little bit of a rough road for Bud Light these past few months. Remember the whole controversy over the summer with Dylan Mulvaney, but you see them trying to recuperate that reputation now among some of its base with the NFL and then also with UFC. But that is our show for this week. Be sure to follow us on X and Instagram at CitrusTV News.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Peter Elliott. We'll see you next week when the markets close one more time.